Welcome back to Business Week on Arise News. I'm joined now by one of my faves, Amaka Anku, Africa head at Eurasia Group. She's going to help me review some of our top stories in detail. Welcome to the show. Great to see you again in these parts.
Thanks for having me.
Did you come to celebrate Nigeria's 64 years?
I came right in time.
I can see your nod to the green. So we'll get right into it. The first one is that Nigeria's CBN has introduced this new FX electronic matching system. Yet another one in a long line of FX-related policies since Cardoso came into office. So tell us about what this does for the FX market.
Yes, I mean, you say yourself, yet another one, right? So I think it's important to note here that this is a process of trial and error and discovery, right? They have been saying for a long time that they wanted to have more transparency in terms of people being able to see the different bids, right? Like, so you can see the final NAFEM number, but you don't know if there was just one person who bought at the high rates, or 5 or 10 or 15, right? So that when you go, so that you don't feel like you're being cheated at the black market if maybe only 5 people was getting at a really high rate and there were 15 people at a lower rate. So I think the idea is for you to be able to see exactly what the bids are, at what rate it's being settled, so that there's more transparency. And like you said at the beginning, this has been a process of discovery, trial and error. They're really trying to figure out what would be the best way to manage the market for stability.
Yeah, and to be honest, the market does thrive on transparency because information is power in this economy. And often, you as an analyst or an economist or a banker, you get told that the market closed at, say, 1.6, but you don't actually know the details of that, which is information that's usually reserved for a privileged few. Exactly. So I think this transparency, you reckon that it would actually calm investor sentiment or trader sentiment or consumer sentiment around availability and pricing of FX? We
hope so, right? But it's hard to tell, like, because these days you just have to kind of see how it plays out. Because look, Rolake, at the end of the day, the problem is that we just don't have enough supply of dollars. So let's just be clear. So I'm empathetic to the CBN. They can try all these different measures to try to manage what we have. Ultimately, we have to solve the problem of earning more dollars. And that's not something the CBN can do.
Indeed. And there's one angle I think we shouldn't mix here, which is the CBN and its use of technology and digital. And I think that's something that has to be mentioned, that this is a great way about talking about the role of technology in democratizing access to information, especially around key issues that drive consumer sentiment in the economy. So kudos to them on this. Let's see how much impact this has on the economy. The other policy move that was announced by the special advisor to the President on Energy, Olubahayan, was this tax and fiscal incentives for the oil and gas sector. Again, good news. Can you tell us a bit about what this means? They're talking about up to $10 billion, attracting $10 billion worth of investments.
Yeah, I mean, look, so we know that for many years there has been declining investment in Nigeria's oil and gas sector, in part because there was lack of clarity around where the PIB was going to go. But also in part because, at least this is what we've been told, that some of the fiscal regime in some other countries are more attractive. So what they are trying to do is to attract more investment in developing oil and gas assets, which of course is very important given what we know is going on in the world, right? Like we're trying to transition away from fossil fuels, and so there's a sense of urgency here. You need to, as quickly as possible, develop the oil and gas resources that you have. And I think one of the things that I heard the government saying is that up to 75% of our gas reserves has not been developed. That's not where you want to be, given that this might not be something that people are using, within the next 100 years.
Yes, indeed. And if you had been here, I went on the top of my show, I was talking about this deal that the government had signed with 6 gas companies, 122 billion naira worth of deals to encourage the development of CNG, LNG plants, propane storage. So seeing that go hand in hand, I think the government is clearly trying to send a very strong signal that we need this FDI and we're going to be willing to do the right things, not just talk the right talk. So this is great news. I mean, let's see how much more this actually attracts.
And I think it's important that it's paired with what they're calling the CNG initiative, right? So trying to encourage people to move from petroleum gasoline-powered cars to CNG-powered cars. It's something that India did that was quite helpful for them. because it's way, 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 way cheaper. It's just going to be a long process, right? It's not something you can achieve, but it would be something that would be really helpful given how expensive gasoline is today and how Nigerians are suffering.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, the technology, the conversion of some of these existing systems to CNG powered systems is also something that might take a bit of time.
Yeah,
but we'll be following that. Now, Ghana has introduced a new gold coin to encourage domestic savings. I'm trying to unpack this because Ghana's economy has been in the spotlight for different reasons. Inflation is back up. We had the debt issue some years ago where bond investors had to take a haircut. Now, the government is trying to boost liquidity or encourage savings. What is the rationale for this new policy?
So I think it's, but they're saying they want to encourage savings. What they want to do is somewhat reduce demand for dollar.
Okay.
Right? We can say what they want to do and then we can tell you whether we think. I don't think it's going to work.
Okay, tell me why you think it's not going to work.
Because, I mean, we're in 2024. How many people want to go buy gold?
Okay.
Right? Like we had the golds that, this is like... I think it's a little bit, it's fine, it's creative. What it could do, so most of average people are not going to switch their savings from dollars
into gold.
Into gold. I think most ordinary people will not do it. Where it might change things is institutional investors who are prohibited from having a number of assets that are non-CD denominated. Right? When they reach those maximums, then they might decide to buy gold. It could help with developing gold sort of, production, sort of encouraging more transactions for the gold industry. But I don't think it alleviates the pressure on the currency just in terms of demand for dollar.
Right. That's an interesting one because we've seen a lot of governments or central banks introduce policies to absorb excess liquidity from the market.
That's what
now, going the route of a gold coin and figuring and thinking whether this is a mass market type thing. It sounds like a very niche investment type of product.
Absolutely.
Notwithstanding the fact that it's insured by the Bank of Ghana and issued by the Bank of Ghana, which essentially that's a sovereign guarantee. But it's quite a strange and very interesting one.
But I would say one thing they're doing that is related to this is that they've been buying this gold in cedis from their local gold producers, and they're counting it as part of their reserves. So they're buying it in cedis. They're marking it to the dollar value, and it's boosting their reserves.
Yeah,
so that's
and if you're buying in CDs, it's also increasing demand, presumably, for CDs.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably the most
there's another
part
important strategy here beyond just as an investment.
Beyond just offering retail investors, which I don't
we'll be watching this one closely, actually, because inflation is also ticking up in Ghana. But kudos to them for finding an avenue to utilize their gold reserves. Well, Amaka, you're staying with us because the next part of our conversation, we're going to be looking at Nigeria's economy at 64.